What you see before you is Corcoran Field on the campus of Xavier University here in North Avondale, just a little outside of Cincinnati. Now, this stadium's capacity right now is 1,500 people, but if you would have gotten into a time machine and gone back about 50 years ago, this stadium, it used to be known as Corcoran Stadium, used to hold 15,000 people. This is where St. Xavier University used to have its football team. The grandstands were all along here and all along there. Now, it seats a modest 1,500 people, and it's home to the Xavier men's and women's soccer team. And today, I'm going to go over 4 parts with you. The first one being the history of Corcoran Stadium / field. The second being the men's team. The third being the women's team. And the fourth being the Cincinnati Kings, who were Cincinnati's last attempt at professional soccer before FC Cincinnati. Okay, so Xavier University here in North Avondale, Ohio. It's located just a little bit north of Cincinnati. It was founded back in 1831 as Athenaeum, and then it changed to St. Xavier College, and then now it's settled on Xavier University. It is a private university. It's a private Jesuit university. And listen to this, it's the 6th oldest Catholic and 4th oldest Jesuit university in the United States. It has, looks like it's about 6,000 students. And its nickname is the Musketeers. Their color is navy blue, white, and silver. You can see the blue and the white. You can also see the navy blue off in the corner right there. Xavier Musketeers. Back in the day, there used to be an ST for Saint in front of it. Back then, they were called the St. Xavier Musketeers. And this used to be known as Corcoran Stadium, but now it's Corcoran Field. This field was built back in 1929. And it was the home of the Xavier University Musketeers football team until 1973, when it dropped its program. The grandstands that used to run right here in place of this grass, they used to go all the way up here, were finally razed to the ground back in 1988. And this field was renovated for the men's and women's soccer team, and the capacity was reduced to a modest 1,500 people. One of the cool things that I really like about this, you see how steep this hill is. The one thing that I really like about this stadium is look at the stands here. So this is all penned in by a fence, okay? And the first, what, 5 or 6 rows is seating, but then you can sit in the grass too. I think that's really, really cool. And it's really dug into the earth too. You guys can see like how steep the buildings are up there and how steep that hill is. I swear, man, I was getting a calf workout just walking up and down this. And you can see even, you know, the walls right there. You can see the hills right there. This really is dug into the ground. I'm sure once you're on the surface here, I mean, you could see that's probably almost, I mean, that's almost a 10-foot drop. So I can imagine once you're playing in here, it feels like you're in the middle of like a pit or something. Right there, behind the net, is all of the accomplishments. Looks like it says Men's Soccer Conference Champions. Okay, so all the way on the left there, it says the Men's Soccer Conference Champions. It says 92, 94, 2010, and 2011. And actually, I'm going to tell you guys about those 2010 and 2011 teams, because there is a man on there that many of you within the American soccer circles have heard of. But I'll get to that later on. It says, what was that? First round 2010, first round 2011, And they made the second round in 2012 and the Sweet 16 in 2014. Right there in the corner it says Big East Soccer. That's the conference that they play in. And in the 2012 season, right there, they beat Kentucky 1-0, but then unfortunately bowed out to Indiana the next round, 4-1. So that 2014 run to the in the Sweet 16, I'm sorry. In the first round, they beat Monmouth in double overtime 2-1. Xavier beat Indiana 2-1. And then unfortunately in the next round, they lost to Creighton 2-1. So that was the furthest that they've ever made it in the tournament back in 2014. And I was telling you guys earlier about 2010, 2011, that year. So one of their famous alumni who used to play right here on this field was none other than Nick Haglund, who currently plays for FC Cincinnati. He actually started the other night against the Columbus Crew. But the notable thing that he did was back in, I think it was 2016, forgive me if I'm off by a year or two, but he won the MLS Cup with Toronto FC. And he also was the runner-up the year before that. So a future MLS Cup champion used to grace this field right here. And pretty cool for him too that he gets to come back home and play for his hometown FC Cincinnati. That must have been a really cool reunion for him. All right, so I came down here to the other end, and right there on the left it says the Women's Soccer Conference Champions. It says 98, which is the banner right next to it, 2000, which is the banner right next to that one, and then 2019, which that was the only year in which they won a game in the NCAA tournament. They beat Virginia Tech 1-0 in the first round, only to then lose to the Kansas Jayhawks 3-0 in the second round. And the last two banners there at the end are their Big East championships. So the second from right is 2019, which was the only time they won, like I just told you, and then 2021. So what was that, just 2 years ago. You can see the big X for Xavier, and their nickname is the Musketeers too. You can see the big X right there in the middle of the field, the Xavier Musketeers. This actually might be one of my favorite stadiums so far, the whole hill on top of the field. Here, let's go up there and get a better shot of the whole stadium. So this site right here, Corcoran Field, was actually the site of the last attempt at professional soccer before FC Cincinnati came to the Queen City. So back in 2005, a man by the name of Yaqub Abdullahi, who was from Mauritania in Africa. He was a graduate of Northern Kentucky, and he founded the team here. It was called the Cincinnati Kings. And he also had a player manager on their team by the name of John Pickup, a former English U16 international who played professionally in England with Wigan, Blackburn Rovers, and Chester City. So they would play here at Corcoran Field, and unfortunately they really didn't do anything of note. They did start their first season off 5-0, and they beat the North Virginia Royals, who is now Nova FC. They went into a mid-season slump, however. And they ended up not qualifying for the playoffs after that mid-season slump. And unfortunately, they would end up losing to the Indianapolis-based USASA amateur side Reggae Boys. They were upset in a shocking first-round loss 4-2, so a good old cup set. The next year, they would lose their first 2 games, but then they would do the opposite of the year before that, and they would go on a mid-season run. It was good enough to get them 4th place in the division, which qualified them for the playoffs. And in the playoffs, they would go on to play the Richmond Kickers, who are a classic USA soccer team here, one of the better lower division teams. And they lost the first game at Richmond in a two-legged affair. They lost 2-1 at Richmond, and then in the second game, they would play here at Corcoran Field in front of 1,465 people. So I can imagine this whole field was packed. And they ended up drawing 0-0 and getting bounced out of the playoffs. Unfortunately, that would be the swan song for the Cincinnati Kings here at Corcoran Field. They would move across the river to Kentucky, to a place called Wilder, Kentucky, where they would play at a sports complex, and unfortunately their fortunes would turn for the worse, and they were absolutely horrible. They ended up just being one of the worst teams in the league over the next couple seasons, and they ended up folding in 2011. And you can really tell that them moving away from Corcoran Field was one of the big reasons for the drop-off. When you look at their attendances, in the first 2 years, they averaged 1,300 and 1,100. And after that, they got to 1,200 one time, and they didn't break 1,000 the last couple years, including their last year in 2012, when they only drew 188 average supporters. So this was the last attempt at professional soccer before FC Cincinnati, and we all know how that attempt has gone. So I think that FC Cincinnati is made up for the Kings. So you got Kings who play here, you got Musketeers who play here, used to be way bigger. So, and you got Champions that have played here. So this tiny little field actually has a lot of history that a lot of people wouldn't know about.
House here with intentions to move up there, but after I got there, my wife came up there one weekend to look for houses, and she's like, there ain't no fucking way this is gonna be home.
Why, was it too expensive, or you didn't like it, or what?
She didn't like it.
No,
I didn't like it either, but it was the best fire department job I ever had.
Okay.
I retired with 33 years in Ohio Fire Service 4 years ago.
Okay.
But my dad played basketball here in 1956.
At Xavier?
Yeah.
Okay.
In that building right there. That's the old field house.
Really?
Yeah.
Just that one right there?
Yeah. It's holding that hillside up. They're going to be tearing it down. They were supposed to tear it down. So when you go there, everything is free. If you go.
What a great guy, Marty. Best groundskeeper I ever met. He said I could just go in here too. It's kind of funny. I was about to walk off and leave, and he comes up to me and he goes, hey, are you trying to get into the stadium? And I was like, yeah, not really. I was just kind of walking around. And he goes, no, I don't think you're shady or anything. I was just gonna let you in. And he ends up just letting me onto the field and driving me around and showing me the other sports stadiums. That's really cool. He was telling me all about history of sports in Cincinnati and stuff. Here are the benches over here. These are kind of unique. These are a lot different too. Usually they just have like the curved, like plastic benches, but these ones are kind of just like shade. And this, what I guess would be considered the press box. You see, it's just like a roof. It's kind of nice, actually. So here's Corcoran Stadium, or Corcoran Field. There's the scoreboard. But there is all the championships, 92, 94, 2010 and 11. And then these are the 2 years right here, 2010 and 2011, when Nick Hagelin would have played here.